Welcome back, friends. And as we do every single time, I want to let you know what's going on with MGoBlue Podcasts. We will get a chance to get into spring ball, which I know is by far the biggest news of the week. But on Conquering Heroes this week, men's lacrosse head coach Kevin Conry is going to join me. And listen to this schedule that they've had in the past couple of weeks and what is to come. Number 11, Army, number 17, Denver, number 5, Harvard, number 1, Notre Dame, and number 12 this weekend against Johns Hopkins. In a couple of weeks, they will open up Big Ten schedule against Maryland, but I tell you what, that's been a brutal schedule. So he's going to go through everything that we've done or that they've done to start this season and the projections of what he feels is going they're going to accomplish through the rest of the year. Thursday and Saturday, I said jokingly earlier, the biggest news is spring ball. It is in my world, but for most Wolverine fans, and I guess I'll have to admit for me as well, post-game editions on Thursday and Saturday of Defend the Block from the NCAA Tournament coming to you straight from Buffalo. And I'm going to use that to segue into my partner, the voice of Michigan basketball, Brian Bush. How excited are you, Mr. Bush?
Fired up. That's what it's all about. This has been a really, really special season. And, obviously Thursday is likely to be the free space on the bingo card. But I got to take care of business against either UMBC or Howard coming up Thursday, 7:10 from Buffalo, where I think it snowed last night. So that's something. But once we get to Saturday, it's all in. Any game can be a big win. Any game can end your season. It's why March is so special and can be so heartbreaking. But I will say this. Michigan has to play better than it did in Chicago over the weekend. I expect Michigan to play better than it did over the weekend in Chicago. This team, when it is locked in, when it is dialed in, is the best team in the country. Have they been locked in, dialed in enough? They've been pretty darn close. But maybe not quite totally refined this past week. I expect a good couple of performances, and I expect we'll be talking plenty of basketball this time next week.
It is going to be exciting, and I would just caution you. And I know we could say whatever we want. I know that we all feel like
we cannot say everything.
Free space. Well, we could say almost anything we want. And Thursday, but if it's UMBC, I think Virginia thought that was going to be a free space as well. I expect that Dusty May and Yaks, all the guys are going to be ready to roll and not have that moment.
Yeah, listen, I understand it, and the coaching staff does not. I think this group does a really good job of not taking any of that for granted, because remember, the game after Purdue Fairleigh Dickinson a few years back was Florida Atlantic Memphis. So imagine that as you're getting ready as, Vladimir or Vladislav Golden or any of the other FAU players, and you're watching the 16 seed win in front of you. And then that game ended up being great. In fact, the guy who had the game-winning shot in that game for FAU was Nick Boyd, who had the game-tying shot before Yaks' heroics on Saturday against Wisconsin. So, yes, I'm just saying, yes, it is almost certain that Michigan will get to the round of 32. My point is to say, beyond that, where, again, it's not a guarantee, but it's likely, beyond that, nothing is guaranteed. Georgia and St. Louis are both really, really good teams. And the comp I've been making, in the Big Ten tournament, we basically saw what the step ladder is to a Final Four, because Ohio State got an 8 seed, Michigan eked past them by 4. Then they faced Wisconsin, Badgers got a 5 seed, needed a game-winning shot at the end. And then Purdue was a 2 seed. So what we saw, without any day off between, that was the step ladder, second round Sweet 16 Elite 8. And Michigan was stressful win, even more stressful win, and a loss. Yep. Nothing's guaranteed. So soak it up and enjoy it. We are soaking up and enjoying the fact that spring ball is here, John Jansen. So as we start our 7 from 77, how you feeling right now? Spring ball, about the team, the program, after a wild, a challenging, an emotional ride to this point.
Well, I'm very excited for spring ball, but not half as excited as the players and the coaching staff is. This is their first opportunity to find out players to coach to player. And for us that are going to be standing on the sidelines, we'll get a chance to see all of it and make our evaluation. So, and the first couple of practices this week obviously are going to be, shoulder pads and shorts. So we're not going to see or feel a lot of what's going on early on in practice. It's going to be all mental. It's going to be Are you in the right place, the right time? Do you understand the concepts? And then past that, it's, hey, it's as simple as snap count, defense, you move when the ball moves, all of those things that you think are inherent and ultimately are, but they, when you're thinking about everything else, where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there, what's my responsibility, what's my call, what's my communication, some of those other things fall by the wayside. So all of it will be evaluated. All of it's going to be, issues that they'll iron out and things that we'll get a chance to see. But I'm really excited about the team, the program, and it's going to be a fun, month of football.
Number 2 on our 7 from 77, Kyle Whittingham announced 4 spring captains. I think the storylines for 2 of them are pretty straightforward. Jordan Marshall, he is going to be a leader on the ground. We've seen him be able to manage a significant amount of carries in a game. Not sure there's going to be a whole lot to unearth from him. Same for Rod Moore on the defensive side. Rod simply needs to be able to get healthy in order to get ready to be able to impact in his 6th season of college football. That's been the issue for him, and we hope we're able to really break down his game once we get into September. The other 2, I think there's some pretty interesting storylines. We'll start offensively with Bryce Underwood, Michigan's quarterback, who Kyle Whittingham said in a press conference on Tuesday that, yeah, he's clear QB1. He's going to be this team's starting quarterback if healthy. What do you, John, want to see from Bryce Underwood over the next month on and off the field?
Well, I mean, gosh, there's so much. I'm going to be looking first at his footwork. Is he going to settle down? Is year 1 to year 2? Is the game? Now, I know that there's going to be a lot going on upstairs simply because it is a new offense. He's going to have some new targets. There's a new communication with a center that is there, and they played together in the bowl game. But again, there's a lot of new going on. But when they're in their individual drills, I want to be watching his footwork. I want to watch his body. Is he getting lined up? Is he doing all of the things that we wanted to see more of it done by the end of last year? Didn't in the bowl game, but those are the technique issues that we all saw, and and he saw and he felt. I want to see that those are getting ironed out, and then I'm going to be watching how he operates the offense from a leadership standpoint. What nobody huddles up anymore, and we'll find out if this team is going to huddle up, if they're going to do things from the line of scrimmage. But how is he commanding the offense? How is he commanding what type of presence does he have on the field? How comfortable is he telling guys, go here, go there, get lined up here, hurry up, slow down, doing all those things? When you're the leader of the team, that's got to be a part of innately what you do. And so I am excited to see him throughout the course of spring. And obviously we know he's got an exciting arm. Anytime he lets go of the ball, it's fun to watch. And on the other end, Andrew Marsh, Jamar Browder, like there's a lot of guys that it's going to be exciting to see those connections develop over the course of spring as well. But for Bryce, first of all, it's technique. Second of all, it's leadership. And then it's just a matter of how much better can he get, and what does it look like in practice 1 versus the spring game, or even if, I don't know how much all of the starters will play, coach will determine that. But, practice 14, what does that look like?
Yeah, Scott Patton here on the YouTube stream. Coy Detmer, awesome coach, Scott saying, and Coy has been with Bryce Underwood pretty much since Coy got on campus. We had him on the audio side of In the Trenches in the last few weeks, so worth learning a little bit more about Coy and that relationship. We'll be excited to hear what Bryce Underwood says about that the next time he speaks. Number 3 on our 7 from 77, the other defensive captain. The other captain I think has a really interesting potential storyline and discussion point is Trey Pierce. The drumbeat around that defensive front, and in particular Pierce and Eno Etta, to me, has probably been the thing I've felt is most noteworthy from this season, right? We can all say Andrew Marsh is really good. I agreed, like totally fair. But the way that people around the program have spoke about the current and the potential of Pierce and Etta, to me, has raised my eyebrows. So just how good can Trey Pierce as a leader, as a player be, and how can that elevate that defensive line?
Well, he can be one of the best in the country, and it's going to be a matter of understanding that that's his potential, for him to understand that. We can all say it, we can all see it, and we can all anticipate and hope that it comes out, but for Trey, it's really about developing that confidence. And, the vote of confidence, hey, you got it from the team as a leader. Now he's the one that's got to set the standard defensively and then bring everybody else to that standard. He's going to have to then reset it and continue to reset it. And no one expects any four of these guys to be perfect, but it's how they react. Players will be watching that. It's how they handle themselves in meetings, in practice, in the weight room. These guys have been voted as the standard bearers for this program moving forward at this point. So for Trey, and when it comes down to the little things that he's got to do, and I've said this a number of different times here, whether you're talking offensive or defensive linemen, it's about honing in on pad level. It's about honing in on how you use your hands. How do you create separation? How do you get that offensive lineman's hands off of you and then go make plays? So those are a lot of the things that I'm going to be watching for Trey, because we know he's got the skills. We know he's got the talent. We know he's got the drive and the character. Now it's a matter of fine-tuning everything so he could be that dominant player that we heard Jay Hill talk about and that we know he can be.
We have a new partner on the podcast, and it is the presenting sponsor of next month's Michigan football spring game, Original Roofing Company.
That's right, Brian. And from drip to dry, Original Roofing Company is the team you want on your side. A Michigan-based family-owned company who provides top-quality roofing services across the entire state with the onslaught of recent storms, and they've been tough. Original Roofing's extensive experience helps homeowners, business owners, and condo associations secure the insurance coverage they deserve through a seamless, hands-off process. So if you're not sure about the condition of your roof, they make it super easy. Get a free, no-hassle roof inspection today at originalroofing.com. That's originalroofing.com. Original Roofing Company. Quality roofs, trusted service, and experts in storm damage insurance restoration.
All right, number 4 on our 7 from 77. Of course, most of the Wolverines' incoming freshman class, early enrollees, a good chunk of them, well above more than 50%. They'll be present for spring ball. So what are some of the key checkpoints for a freshman involved in their first spring?
Well, this is going to be their first introduction to big-time offense, big-time defense. And there's going to be a lot of terminology. There's going to be a lot of things that are thrown at them. And when you have a base of knowledge, even if you're going from freshman to sophomore year and you get a new system put in place, it's easier to envision what that system looks like on game days when everything is full speed. It's a little bit different coming in as a freshman because you don't even know what that looks like, feels like. So for the freshman, first of all, it's going to be, you got to do all the little things right. And that, first of all, being on time. And everybody would look and say, well, that should be a standard. It is, but hey, these are guys that are, instead of going from your homeroom to the gymnasium, now you're going from, trying to find your classes, your dorm rooms. How am I going to work all of this? And, do I have enough time to get down to practice, get in meetings, get taped, do all those things? So there's some of that stuff that freshmen are just going to learn. And as upperclassmen, you always love it when they learn the hard way. But it's also up to the upperclassmen to make sure that they know what it takes. And if guys in your position group are chronically late, if they aren't taped, if they're not out at practice, they're not the walkthrough, they're not doing it, they don't have a pencil, they don't have paper, they don't have their notebook. Those are the things that, as a veteran in that group, it's on them, not the freshmen. So, yeah, freshmen got to learn all those things, but how are they going to learn it? It's to be shown by upperclassmen. And then it's really a matter of, hey, go out there and play football. That's probably the biggest thing I remember as being a freshman in my first spring ball, and it's different now because I wasn't an early enrollee, but in my first training camp, it's, don't get caught. Yeah, you want to learn the playbook, but sometimes you get so caught up in making everything so mechanical that you forget how to play the game. You were brought here for a reason. You're all good athletes. You're all good at what you do. And at some point, even if you mess up a scheme, do it fast, do it hard, do it with athletic ability, do it with all the things that you've learned, and naturally you're going to fall into some things. You're going to create some opportunities for you. So I think the key that I would tell all those guys is, again, don't get caught up on the X's and O's. That's going to come, and it's going to come through time, through study, and it's going to come through experience. Go out there and play the game of football, play it fast as you can, as hard as you can. And if it's your opportunity, make the most of it. Hey, they throw you the ball, catch it. If you get a chance to make a tackle, just make a tackle. It's no different. The setting, the players that you're going against are different, but it's no different than what earned you the position that you're in.
Number 5 on our 7 from 77, of course, Bryce Underwood was the most highly discussed freshman in the program this time last year. This season, I think it's pretty clearly running back Savion Hyder. He's had some big-time fans of the program for a while now. How will you grade his work during the spring? And do you think he can be a real impact piece as soon as week 1 alongside Jordan Marshall in the running back group?
Well, from what I saw in high school film, the answer to the second part of that question is yes. But what I need to see is during spring ball, during fall camp, probably more importantly, is how comfortable does he look? Is he like all those things that I just mentioned about young players? Like, and it's probably most important at the running back position. Sure, if you're supposed to hit the 2-hole, the 4-hole, the 6-hole, like it makes life easier if you're in the right spot. But how natural does he look out there? And I have no doubt that he is going to come in and fulfill all the expectations that Tony Alford has been talking about, that the coaching staff has made mention of. He's going to be a big-time player, and I think probably the most important, the one thing that can earn him the trust, more so than, hey, how do you pass protect? How do you hit the right hole? What are you doing downfield? Is ball security. That's, we talk about offensive lineman snap count. The one thing that players, running backs, will sometimes not concentrate enough on is ball security. And you're so worried about making sure that, hey, I'm supposed to lead with the right foot, and that's the first step here. I'm supposed to make sure that I press the outside edge of the tackle, and then I cut back, and you forget the most important thing, and that's the football. High and tight, all those points of pressure. You got to make sure that's going to be the one thing that drops you down the depth chart, and a lot faster than anything else is going to raise you up the depth chart.
Number 6 here on this week's 7 from 77. Friday is Michigan's annual pro day for the Sunday hopefuls, former Wolverines. So we'll have more reaction to it, thoughts from it next week, but anything you'll have your eyes on there? Yeah,
I want to see Max Bredesen. I'm hoping he's, healthy enough to be able to perform. When I think about all of these guys and I think about the what they did on the field, first of all, what they did on the field is going to be what everybody evaluates. And there's some, Max is probably more of a niche type of player. He's got to be in the right system as a fullback / tight end. But I just think Jimmy Rolder is a guy that I'm really going to be looking at. I know that if you're looking at some of the draft projections, he's a guy that's way down the list of, a bunch of talking heads that I quite honestly, I don't think know a lot about what they're talking about. It's just they're regurgitating something else that they've heard. Jimmy Rolder is a player that I really think is going to, even if he's taken late, which he's a day 2 pick. I think he is a player that's really going to add a lot of value to the team that drafts him. So there's, we're going to be looking at the 40s. We'll ooh and ah over the fast guys, and we'll make fun of the linemen.
Will we?
It's all of those things. But it's when I'm watching the position specific drills, this is a much more hands-on position specific drill. So watching the O and D linemen, like you're going to have actual offensive line coaches holding the bag, and they want to feel when an offensive lineman comes off the ball, like what's that pop when they're setting in their pass sets, and the coach walks that bag into them. What does that pop feel like? Some guys have heavy hands, some guys are a little bit more finesse, and so they want to be able to feel what that's like. They want to see the D line come off the ball. They want to see linebackers react, and those are the things that I'm going to be watching, and I'm excited to see our guys perform.
Before we wrap things up on our 7 from 77, our viewers, our listeners have a chance to win big this March with no bracket required. Tell them about it, John.
Well, this sounds fun because you can go play the Varsity Network Swish and Win, and you could do it today. Just visit the College Sports Now X page at CS Now tweets and enter to win $500 in gift cards and varsity gear. Then all you got to do is download the free Varsity Network app, your only destination for hometown calls and complete coverage of every men's and women's game all month long.
Yeah, self-serving here. The only way that you can hear Terry and me this NCAA tournament digitally is on the Varsity Network app. Other ways like the Michigan Athletics app, some of our affiliates' websites, those all have to be shut down based on national radio rights. So if you want to hear the local hometown call and you aren't in the state of Michigan and able to get with one of our radio affiliates, check it out, the Varsity Network app. Great stuff, not just our calls, but a lot of great broadcasters all throughout the country, even a few that aren't that great, but most of them are pretty darn good. But we can bring those to you on the Varsity Network app. Now, John, we can't make money on this with our roles and positions, but maybe those here who are watching and listening can benefit from your Final Four selections. So, John Jansen, who you got?
Well, this was an interesting task because I have yet to fill out my bracket. I have until noon on Thursday, but what I normally do is I start with who I think is going to be in the Final Four, and I work back from there. And I think maybe the two easiest brackets are the West, and I think Arizona comes out of the West. And I know, hey, Purdue, I just don't think Purdue is consistent enough. If they get hot and if they make it to the Elite Eight and they play against Arizona, and as we've seen, hey, whether it's Lawyer or any of those guys, they get hot behind the arc. Man, they can be really tough, as we witnessed. I just don't know that they're consistent enough, and I think Arizona is. The Midwest bracket, with the issues that Alabama's having, and Iowa State not being, all that consistent, Texas Tech being down their number one guy, I think Michigan comes out of the Midwest. So there's my two on that side of the bracket. The other side of the bracket, I think, is a little bit more interesting. The East, which is where we all know those dirty dog Spartans are. And we know how inconsistent they can be. And so I do not have
consistent in a few ways.
Yes. Yeah. Just make sure you wear your cup. For me, it's Duke and UConn, coming out of the East. And I know Duke's not at full strength, and UConn has been, it's hard to say a team with their record is inconsistent, but they've been inconsistent. However, I think with Coach Hurley and the experience that they've had, and I know a lot of the players are different, but they're pursuing another championship. I think UConn actually comes out of the East. So that's my first, non-1 seed to make it into the Final Four. And then in the South, I just really like Houston in the tournament. I like how fast they play. I like how disciplined they are. Coach Sampson has been there a long time. He's been in this position a number of different times. And I just think, I know Florida's defending champs, but I think Houston is the team that comes out of the South.
Yeah, we agree on 3 of the 4. I would pick Duke. I think they'll find a way health-wise. I think they're too good. But how about what could be the potential Sweet 16 matchups in the East? You could have Duke against St. John's or Kansas, and then you could have Michigan State versus UConn. Good luck to the officials on that UConn-Michigan State game. I wish you all the very best. Any upset picks that you've had your eye on for any of the higher seeds there, John?
Well, yeah. How about in the second round? I mean, you could have Mick Cronin and Hurley.
Oh, good point.
That might be the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd have to look down to see either of them, but
hey, you know what? Hey, UCLA, they had to make another trip east, so I'm sure he's doing great with that.
Yes. But I got to
if I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck. Buddy.
Yeah. Well, hey, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting matchups, and let me ask you this, because you're much more embedded, obviously, in college basketball than I am. Last year, no team seated lower than 12 made it past the first round. Arkansas was 10. They made it to the Sweet 16. They're the only double-digit seed that made it to the Sweet 16. But I can't say that Arkansas, coming from the SEC, is a Cinderella. There's no way I can make that.
John Calipari-led teams are not Cinderellas.
Yeah. Right. And so last year went very chalk to start the tournament. I think we're heading that way again. And we asked this question on the morning show. Is Cinderella dead?
I don't think Cinderella's dead. I do think this year, some of the 13s and 14s that could have slotted in got upset. Right, there were two teams, along with Michigan, that won their leagues in the regular season by 4 or more games. Liberty, upset. Navy, upset in their leagues, Conference USA and Patriot League, respectively. Belmont was really good. They're a top 75 KenPom team. They didn't get it in the, I think that's Missouri Valley. Like, there were some teams that could have then shifted a Hofstra or an Akron or a Northern Iowa to a different seed line. So, yeah, I don't think it's necessarily dead. I think these mid-major conferences need to adopt. I know it kind of got, made fun of a little bit in the West Coast Conference or the Sun Belt where they do the step ladder.
Yeah.
Make it better for your teams that win in the regular season. The regular season needs to matter in some way, shape, or form. And it does with maybe a bye or a single bye or something here and there. The MAC doesn't have all 12 teams go to the MAC tournament. That's great. But boy, I love the concept of top 2 seeds get to the semifinals because that gives you the best chance to have the best team in the tournament. I will say, I have a feeling that in Michigan's bracket, the Midwest, I just got a feeling either Akron or Hofstra is going to pull it off, either the 12 or the 13. That's where I'm looking. I know the High Point over Wisconsin's a trendy one. High Point's got a bunch of NIL. They got one big donor down there. It's crazy. Like, that campus is it's wild. But I don't know about that. I think the upside of Wisconsin is too great. But I do think we'll have somebody. Do I expect one of those teams to make it to the Sweet 16? No, probably not. But I'd be surprised if it were like last year where we just had the one and it was McNeese. Remember, they beat Clemson in the 5-12 game as a pretty modest favorite in the betting market. I expect at least a couple. But the 14s, 15s, 16s, the way that the conference tournaments went, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up Akron, a team that loves the 3. They're playing Texas Tech, who's down their number 1 player. And Alabama, as we've all heard as of late last night or early this morning, they're down their number 2 scorer and their point guard. So, yeah, they're up against it. And it would be interesting if Hofstra and Akron were to play each other instead of Alabama and Texas Tech.
Oh, that'd be great. And potentially
then one of them has to make it to the Sweet 16.
A Sweet 16 matchup potentially of Michigan and Hofstra, for those who are really embedded on the radio side. Hofstra is the proud alma mater of our buddy Rob Joyce. So we would have, in studio, we would literally have a difficulty getting on the air for the Sweet 16 if it were Michigan Hofstra. I think he'd probably try to unplug some wires or something. Anyways, going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to get going with Michigan and either UMBC or Howard. That game's coming up tonight around 7 o'clock. You can catch it with probably about 100 Impractical Jokers promos on True TV. But we have our transition now, and boy, we have a great conversation with the head coach of Michigan football, Kyle Whittingham, on the audio side. On the video side, John Jansen, we do have some more fun. We'll get into a few comments here, and I do encourage people to check out the interview that John did with Kyle Whittingham, just recorded a little bit before we started here on stream. Anything you want to kind of tee up to those who are locked in on the video side to make sure they get over to the audio side tomorrow?
Well, I do ask the importance of the spring game. There is going to be a spring game this year, and how long that lasts. He goes in depth on that. And it's also, I spent this one. So the plan that we've heard is that, hey, we're going to get a chance to talk to Coach Whittingham about halfway through spring ball. We'll get a chance to talk to him after spring ball and then before fall camp as well. And we'll take anything else we can get in between. But I didn't ask a lot about the players. I did ask about Bryce Underwood. And so, we heard earlier that, he's going to be the starting quarterback as long as he's healthy. But I wanted to learn more about the 4 captains that they have in the spring: Bryce Underwood, Jordan Marshall, Rod Moore, and Trey Pierce. And I really liked his answers on those. Talked a little bit about, hey, ask him the question. why do you love college coaching? He's been a well-respected coach for a long time. And why not jump to the NFL at any point? And I loved his answer. So I think there's a lot about him coming in, putting his fingerprint on this program. What does that mean? What does it look like? What are his expectations? What does he want to learn from some of the players throughout the course of spring ball? And when he expects to have a depth chart put together. So all of those things you can hear on the audio version.
Yeah, we'll get into some comments here. We'll do at the end. Give us your final four in the comments. We'll react to a few of them here. We'll see if anybody's got some wild ones. I know it's been largely chalk. Scott asking, will Coach Witt change how spring ball is played like in the past with hot dogs versus steak? You did not ask that question, which
no, but
that is on the to-do list.
It is on the to-do list, and I will ask that one when we get to the midpoint, when it becomes a little bit more of an important topic. Always an important topic. Hey, you start putting those teams together, those guys got to know what they're playing for.
So, Coach, first time you're officially on In the Trenches. I know we had him on the radio broadcast down at the Citrus Bowl, but the first real formal conversation here in Ann Arbor. Coach, first question for you. What's the deal with the ramifications of the spring game?
Yeah. Hey, winner's got to get something, right?
Hey, always the hard-hitting questions from John Jansen. Mm-hmm. LW asking, where is Chase Herbstreit on the depth chart? Is he top 4 at quarterback? Coach Whittingham was asked about QB2 in his press conference on Tuesday. The only name he mentioned was Tommy Carr standing out. Didn't really get too much into details, but it does sound like there is a wide open competition at quarterback 2 behind Bryce.
I would think there would be. I mean, Bryce is, Chase has got some experience being in the program, but there's a lot of talent that they brought in. And so it'll be interesting to see how QB2, QB3, how that depth chart works itself out.
MGoBlue Brian asking, John, what is the most important thing this team can get accomplished this spring?
It's going to be becoming a team. Now, it's not going to be a finished product, but there's a huge roster turnover and it's the same in a lot of programs, but who can get those players that are new to the program? And it's unique this year because you got a new coaching staff. You've got, half the team they were here last year, but they're not familiar with the coaching staff. They're not familiar with the guys that are coming in. And you've got to find a way by the end of spring ball. Players need to know what the expectations are from the coaches. What's the expectation today at practice? What's the expectation throughout this week? What do we want to have accomplished by Saturday? All of those things have to be ironed out. And some of those things you don't know until you've actually lived and gone through it. And then, hey, how do the new guys fit with the old guys? All of those things have to be ironed out. And this is a great opportunity with no eyes watching. No, it's not going to be televised. The spring game will be, but it's an opportunity to work all those things out without having to answer, hey, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Like all of those things will be answered behind closed doors. And this is the perfect time for these guys to try new techniques, new skills, and learn more about each other.
Tony asking, do athletes still even wear cups?
Not in football.
Yeah. Maybe if you're the 14 seed in the East region, you should consider it.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, jock straps are still a thing. Gotta make sure you keep things high and tight, just like, we talk about Savion Hire protecting the football. You got to make sure things are in and out of the way, but no cups.
That stoppage before you went to Savion Hyder, I was like, where in the world is he going with? Oh, this is
I've always got a plan. It may not be one that anyone else sees, but I can always land the plane at some point.
Boy, turbulence.
Yeah, sometimes it's a crash landing.
Yeah. Patrick, do you think spring ball can help guys further down the depth chart feel important, seen, motivated? The motivation will obviously be there. In terms of importance and seen, John, and obviously if you're not on the 2 deep, there's still a value to you on the team. But how would you assess this spring ball? We've heard plenty of times where guys have said, hey, they were what Jaden Sanders, I think Wink told us last year, was 9th on the depth chart at cornerback. Going into spring last year, or maybe even coming out of spring, and he just kept getting better and better and better.
Well, here's the thing about that is especially unique to this year. Everyone other than Bryce, we heard, who's going to be the starter, everyone's starting with a clean slate. So no matter what type of impression you made on your offensive line coach, your linebacker coach, your position coach prior, that's all gone except for in the running back room with Tony Alford. Everyone else is new. So it is an absolute clean slate. So yeah, this year, guys that last year were further down the depth chart, they better feel important, they better be seen, and they better be motivated because they have a chance to make that first impression, to be able to jump up the depth chart when coach starts putting it together.
Scott asking about the spring game. No, Doug and John will not be live on the sidelines, but we will have a broadcast of the Michigan spring game coming up April 18th, 1 month from tomorrow, and hopefully about a week and a half after a parade or two.
So let me ask you this question. We won't be on the sidelines, which would be awesome for the spring ball, but will we have Flagman on the sidelines?
No, the spring game.
He's too involved in his Eagles work.
No, it's more of a. It's honestly just logistical. For being honest, he also lives in Philadelphia. Yeah. We need to save Jason for it. It's load management, basically. Is what we're doing. But yes, it'll just be the Doug and John show coming up on April 18th. One thing I did want to make sure to share, I forgot about this last week, but man, if you missed the conversation with new offensive line coach Jim Harding, I absolutely loved and adored this little question where, John always has a plan, as he says.
Uh-huh.
And then he says something and he goes, well, I don't actually believe that.
I like symmetry. I like poetry. Not the actual poetry, but in life.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, just like you can hear yourself just churning with your mind.
I like symmetry. I like poetry. Not the actual poetry, but in life.
Yes. Very. Everything needs to have its place. Everything needs.
And who's your favorite poet?
Yeah, I wouldn't even be able to tell you one to be. Oh,
you had a chance to say I wouldn't even know it. You were right there.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, I am at a loss for words. I mean, if we're just talking songwriters, Chris Stapleton, he's a great poet.
Yeah,
that's poetry.
Technically counts. Yes, great job. Impressed you. You gave us a name. Now, I do want to talk about some guys, and I'm going to eliminate anybody we've talked about here on these first 37 minutes of our stream. Those we haven't discussed. Give me a couple guys, offense, defense, you're excited about seeing early on in spring ball where you feel like the early data points, the early observations could help, sway you, give you some sort of an idea of what that individual might be able to bring.
So I did actually mention one guy, so I'm going to break your rule, but I mentioned him in referencing Bryce Underwood. And so I'll start with him, and that's Jamar Browder. We talked a lot about him last year, saw him throughout the course of practice, and boy, there are some times where he just absolutely flashes. And I want to see with this new staff, the new system, a second year working with Bryce as your quarterback, second year of just the game slowing down a little bit for him. I really have high expectations that he'll be able to be right there with Andrew Marsh as one of the top targets for this team. He's got so much speed and height and length, and his catch radius is one of the best in the country. So I'm really excited to watch him and see what he's been doing since January, and how that's going to help him on the football field, and just growth from year one to year two. The other guy, and this will shock no one, is an offensive lineman, but it's Jake Warnera, who last year started the season third on the depth chart at guard. And if you go back and you grade everything and you look at everything in terms of opportunity, number of snaps, and the way he graded out, I thought he was the best offensive lineman Michigan had last year. You move him to center, which I think is a great position for him. You look at him, you watch him play, and you think, damn, that's a center body. That's the way a center should play. I'm really excited about watching him and him being now in position to make all of the calls. He's a much better athlete, nothing against Kripp, but he's just a better athlete, better suited to play the center position. So I'm really excited to see what he's been working on and what the offensive line looks like with him at center. Defensively, I'm looking at Dom Nichols on the edge, and he's a guy he's got long arms. He's got a great get off. He just needs to be more consistent, and he needs to be consistent throughout the course of practice. In terms of how he uses his hands, how he uses his leverage, in setting up when I'm watching one-on-one pass pro, like I want to see him set up an offensive lineman because you usually get 2, maybe 3 reps back to back. And I want to see what's the first one, like what's his go-to move, and then what's the move off of that move? How does he counter it on some of those offensive tackles? And then I think we're all looking to see Jair Hill. Can he take that next step and be a consistent corner? He is the guy on this team that I think has the highest upside of guys that'll be draft eligible next year. I think he could work himself into as high as a day 1 pick. He's got that type of talent, but it needs to be consistent. We need to see it play in, play out, and he needs to be one of those guys that is a shutdown corner. So I'm going to be watching a lot of what he's doing this spring.
It's interesting. I'm trying to think of who else you would put in that. And I know I'm throwing you on the spot here, but obviously with guys like Bryce, Underwood, Andrew Marsh, they're going to be true sophomores, so they won't be draft eligible. Even though I think we can probably both agree that those 2 guys probably have the most overall upside within the roster right now. But who would be? I mean, would it be a John Henry Daly who would be that second guy beyond Jair Hill who has the highest next year NFL upside? Anybody else I'm missing? Is there an offensive lineman? Is it Guarnera?
Well, I mean, so it could be. I think I need to see Jake play this year. I think, yeah, but I mean, he's so young. I would expect that he would be here not just for this coming year, but for 2 years. Sure, he's draft eligible, but I would expect that he'd be here for another 2 years to continue to develop. And John Henry Day, like I would like to say, yeah. And if what we saw at Utah is anything of what we'll see here, then sure. But I need to see him on the field, and I need to see him. I know they play Big 12 football, and they're playing against big tackles. And I know he had a couple of tackles he was going against in practice last year. They're going to be first round picks this year from Utah. But I need to see him against Big 10 tackles and see how he matches up. And again, we won't see it in spring. But I do want to see like what's his plan. Like you can't just go into Big 10 play with your best pass rush every single time. There needs to be a plan, and I want to see what that looks like.
Yeah. I'll have to think more on that. And maybe it's a guy we talked about earlier in Trey Pierce. Maybe he is the guy who has that highest potential day 1 upside coming up next year. Jordan Marshall, from a talent standpoint, position agnostic would, but just running backs don't really go all that high in the NFL.
Well, especially with this year, I think there's going to be a couple that go in the first round. There was a couple last year. And then you start thinking about Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, a draft before. I just don't know that, like, what's the need going to be? There's always a need for running backs, but for your franchise running back, I'm not sure that there's going to be an extreme need in next year's draft.
Yeah, and shoot, I mean, in this year, it sounds like Jeremiah Love could be a top 5 pick, and then you might not see another running back until the first pick of the 3rd round is 65. Like, it could be a while. LW saying John's poems would be as good as his graphs.
That's a good poll. Nice poll.
LW is an OG around here. We appreciate we appreciate a P1 listener here and viewer with us on the streams, because
don't be knocking the graph. That was a great visual. I just wasn't prepared. I didn't expect I needed a Sharpie in the middle of the show. So next time I will be prepared.
Okay. Yeah. Good luck with that. All right. What do you want to see from Michigan basketball this weekend? Where are your expectations for the matchup Thursday and then Saturday against either Georgia or St. Louis?
So I don't necessarily want to answer a question with a question, but I'll ask this: the turnaround from playing on Sunday to getting the seed where you're playing on Thursday. Now I know Thursday, Saturday gives you that extra day of rest before you play next week, but is that something of a concern? Now, I know we think whether it's High Point or it's Howard, it probably won't matter, but what's your thought on going from Sunday to Thursday.
Yeah, it's a tough deal because you played 3 games in 3 days. That's not ideal. Yax was asked about his little tweak there Sunday late in the Big Ten Tournament Championship game. He says he'll be fine. That'll be certainly something to watch for. There'll be an open practice on Wednesday in Buffalo to see. I think it's about a 40-minute long practice. They don't do a whole lot. They get a chance to go somewhere off site and have a little bit more of a practice. But Dusty and this staff have, I think, done a really good job of setting things up to where there's a lot more mental reps once you get into this time of year. His concept being, hey, if you haven't done the work to this point, if you're trying to play catch up, then you've probably already lost. Basically, we've done a lot of our work already. Now it's a matter of going and executing and being better. So I'd be a little bit more leery of it if Michigan were playing a better team. And that's no disrespect to UMBC or Howard. These will be the worst teams based on KenPom Michigan will face all year other than LaSalle. And that's a credit to Michigan's schedule. It's not to discredit those teams. It's just Michigan scheduled really, really well. They only scheduled 3 quad 4 games. And I think one of them was a Big Ten game they couldn't control. So, from that, and I think the other one was Oakland, and Oakland was like right on the border. That's a good program over there. So I don't worry about it too much, obviously, as long as Yax is good to go. The interesting thing, and you can hear the conversation on our audio podcast feed, the radio replay of Inside Michigan Basketball. Akeem Miskadeen, Michigan assistant, who was actually at Georgia for a while, knows Mike White there. He'll be on the scout for Georgia if that's the matchup in the round of 32. The quote was about Morez Johnson Jr. It looked like the whole season took a toll on his body during this tournament. Yeah. I think of all the observations, takeaways I had from this past weekend was validating to me of saying, Rez might be the key to all of this just because he can be such that steadying force. Yax is going to have to do a lot, but we know that. And he's got to be doing a lot from a high usage on ball scenario. But Rez is this team's toughness factor. He is I've called him the bouncer. He's the enforcer, right? Like he is this team's physicality, and it wasn't there. And I don't know what happened there, and I don't know if the 3 games in 3 days had any impact. It was just so surprising because Rez has been as consistent as anybody, and he has such high expectations for himself, and I think that he's going to be the guy I'm going to be watching for the most Thursday early and then Saturday early. Is how does he bounce back and impact the game, and was it something of just kind of getting toward the end of the season? He's from the Chicago area, right? Was it something home related that he can learn from going hopefully into the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 back in Chicago? I think there's some interesting dynamics there, but this team needs Rez to be really, really good. And he's been that most of the year, maybe as consistent as anybody, just wasn't there over the weekend.
Yeah. So listening to your answer, I think the biggest thing that I want to see this weekend in these 2 games is take care of business early and get those guys that you're going to need when you get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, championship game. Get them off their feet and, hey, put your pom-poms on, get your cheerleader skirt ready, and do your best James Franklin from the sideline. But get those guys, hey, keep the rhythm going, play well, but get up and get out.
I don't know how we can top that. The fact that I asked about expectations for the NCAA tournament, we got to James Franklin pom-poms. Like, that's impressive. So I think that's it. I think we're good. I think that's another stream. We'll be back Tuesday next week, hopefully maybe we're talking Michigan versus Hofstra or Akron in the Sweet 16 in Chicago. That'd be pretty cool. I just want Michigan there. I'll take Michigan against whoever is on the other side. And certainly Michigan will be favored to get to the Sweet 16. You got to do it. You got to take care of business. All right. We'll be back next week. Thanks to all those for watching. Again, check out @CS Now Tweets on X, College Sports Now page. Got a really fun contest there. You can win $500 in gift cards. And check us out this weekend, Thursday, 6:30 airtime along our radio network and only digitally on the free Varsity Network app. John, final thoughts, final word?
I tell you what, first practice is this afternoon. It's going to be exciting. There's going to be a lot of energy. So there's going to be a lot for us to talk about. I think there's going to be 3 total practices before we reconvene next Tuesday at 11:15. So excited to bring some of that insight to our listeners.
And shout out the women's team. Kim Barnes-Arico, a 2 seed. They host this weekend. I got my fingers crossed that I can get back in time to check out the Sunday game. But 5:30 Friday, MGoBlue.com/tickets. Come out and support the women. Best seed ever. Second time they are hosting a first and second round site. So good luck to Coach Arico, Sila, Liv, Mila, all the Wolverines coming up on Friday and then hopefully Sunday. All right, for Jon, I'm Brian. We'll talk to you next week here on the Michigan Athletics YouTube and back again